Hello and welcome to the Veil and Armor podcast. This is your host, Sheila. I'm a stay-at-home mom and a freelance Catholic journalist. Seeking the guidance of the Holy Spirit and the inspiration of Our Lady, I strive to tell stories that inspire, illuminate, and enrich the lives of Catholic women to help them in living out our vocation of raising the next generation of leaders and saints.
Please join us every week on the Veil and Armor podcast, where stories come alive through a journalist's lens and mother's heart.
You are listening to episode 3 of the Veil and Armor podcast, where we share stories of the sacred and the feminine genius. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Today's episode is the second part of the interview with cancer survivor and podcaster Tammy Peterson. In this episode, she discusses her upbringing and what drew her to the Catholic faith. Please have a listen. So, were you Christian before
I
this
was
happened?
raised Protestant.
Okay.
My grandmother, my dad's mom played the organ in the church. My mom's mom sang in the choir. My parents, though, when I was a little kid, I went to Sunday school, but my family kind of stopped going to church. I was youngest too. I was 5 years younger than my 3 other siblings. And so they left when I was 12 years old. And I told you I grew up in a bit of remote northern town.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone went to Edmonton for university.
Okay.
So as soon as they were 18, they left home.
Okay.
And so I was left with my parents when I was 12. And they didn't go to church. Neither of them did. And so I stopped going. And I started doing yoga, actually. I started doing yoga when I was 13.
Oh.
My aunt taught me. I went to spend the summer with my aunt, and she taught me yoga every morning for a week and then gave me a book of yoga. And I went home and I did yoga every day from the time I was 13 till the present, really. I've done yoga forever and ever. And I left the church and studied yoga and practiced yoga. And it was helpful in that it was a practice. It was a meditation practice. And so then when I decided that I would go back to the church and I would study the dogma and I would be more conscious of my belief. It was pretty easy for me to start a prayer practice because I was very, very used to giving myself over to a practice of meditation. So a practice of prayer and meditation is what I have now.
And were you close to the Catholic Church before they used?
My cousin found out I was sick after I was better. She apologized that she didn't know. I said it was fine. And she said, I'm going to send you something. And I said, okay. And so we went off on tour and we came back and I was looking through the mail and I saw a letter from her and I opened the letter and in it was a rosary. Oh, it was my great-grandmother's rosary. So my Polish grandmother was Catholic.
Oh, okay. All right.
So my great-grandmother gave her rosary to my grandmother. When my grandmother passed away, she gave it to my cousin. And my cousin gave it to me.
Okay.
And so I knew my great-grandmother when she was 104, and I was probably 5.
Yeah.
And she kept that rosary with her every day, and so did my grandmother. And so now it's been passed to me. And so that was quite a gift to get. And I think probably deep down I was Catholic all along, because when I was a kid in school in the Protestant church, I used to yearn for stories and prayers that were based around Mary. And I didn't find that in the Protestant church, not really. And it's way more central in the Catholic faith. And so I think I'm more suited to something closer to Catholicism than Protestantism. And now the Protestant church has become so ideological. They've lost their way. So I think each of us has a duty to be as devout as we can during this time, because there's a lot of misunderstandings about what is true and what is not true these days. And I think that the trouble that we're in is caused by people leaving the church, leaving religion. Because when you leave religion and when you stop having God as the highest authority, then that high authority will fall to other things, whether it's medicine or politics or materialism, So it becomes multifaceted instead of this guiding principle that we have in the church. And as long as we don't have that guiding principle, we will continue to have these other lesser, we call them guiding principles, but they're not, they're misguided principles. And that's partly why the schools are in such a bad place, is because people just aren't as focused on their ethics. I think we have a lot of work to do. And I want to be part of that.
If you would permit me, I wanted to read sort of a quote from, I was trying to read this book, Chesterton's Orthodoxy, but I was reading the preface, and this person writing the introduction, he was saying Chesterton viewed this world as a sort of cosmic shipwreck. A person's search for meaning resembles a sailor who awakens from a deep sleep and discovers treasure strewn about, relics from a civilization he can barely remember. So I'm just wondering, in terms of your coming towards the Catholic Church, is this kind of how you came to it? Or is it more like, St. Paul on the horse getting blinded and he has a conversion? Like, how has your...
Well, I would say that my conversion was pretty sudden.
Okay.
It really did feel, when I looked at my son and told him my prognosis and saw the grief in his eyes, I felt the weight of the world leave my shoulders in a way that it was something I'll never forget. It was profound. And what exactly happened? Why did I feel something on my shoulders? I think that my musculature must have been held I was holding myself in a certain way that I was forcing myself to be someone that I thought I should be. And at that moment, I gave up that thought and I became more aligned, I think, more aligned. Okay. But it was very sudden. It was very sudden. It was more like a shipwreck. Okay. That was just, it was as if I had been underwater and I had come up for air when I didn't even know I had been underwater.
Was it like a surrender?
Yeah, I would say it was like a surrender. But I was definitely letting go of my own preconceptions, right? Because I think I was holding myself hostage with this cynicism and this self-doubt. I think I was holding myself hostage and I let it go. You know that saying, let go and let God? I think I let it go. I didn't have to hold on anymore. And I had been having a feeling of self-will, right? Of control and self-will. And at that moment, any kind of self-will seemed fruitless and it was unnecessary.
So you can have a choice of any religion. And why specifically the Catholic Church? Because there are rules, there are doctrines. Some people might say, oh, it's so constraining. I want to live my life. And, I can pick and choose, but why specifically the Catholic Church?
I think that I feel that I have had a lot of liberty in my life. And I think that we are in dark times. And that, when you're in dark times, you have to make sure that all the buttons are buttons and all the zippers are zipped and all of your shoes are tied properly and the oil is changed in the car. And, you just have to make sure that everything is where it needs to be because a storm is coming. I kind of feel like we are in the time of Noah.
Oh, okay.
And that it's time to batten down the hatches. And I think that the Catholic Church and all its doctrines is like battening down the hatches, not leaving anything to chance.
And specifically, you mentioned about Mary and the Rosary. What is the appeal?
Yeah, what is the appeal? I know, it's a strange appeal. I think probably when I was young, I very much looked up to my grandmothers. There was feminism, definitely feminism in my past or in my family's past that was passed on to me. And I think that was part of the first thoughts I had of Mary was that this couldn't all be the Bible and all of the teachings. Some of this had to come from a divine feminine side of things. And now, I guess, in my life now, because I really think the premise to my podcast is the divine feminine. So all the podcasts that I'm doing them because I'm investigating the divine feminine. And at first I thought the divine feminine would be the Rosary, and that I would investigate the Rosary. And I interviewed Jonathan Pageau, and maybe you saw some of those, and talked to him about the Rosary. And so I was very interested in that. But then when I started really thinking about what the divine feminine meant, I thought, well, the divine feminine is biology, right? Because we make babies. So we are the biology side of life, women. And what's going on in our society right now with biology? Well, all these gender issues and child trafficking. And so all these really dark motifs started to come up. And I thought, oh my goodness, am I going to have to investigate those things? And I thought, yes, I am going to have to investigate those things. So then I began to investigate those things, and I've began to talk about those things. And mostly what I do is when I interview people is I ask questions and I listen, mostly. Because I really, like I said previously, I'm not an authority on anything. I don't claim to be an authority on anything. I want to learn, and I imagine I want to learn just like everyone else wants to learn. And so my husband has told me the best way to run a podcast is to listen and ask whatever questions come to mind. And so that's what I do. And so I try to be, there was one guest, I had read one of his books. He was a professor of divinity at Cambridge University. And I had read one of his books, and I thought, I'm going to interview him. And he's very sweet. He said yes. And then I read his next book, and I couldn't understand it at all. It was way beyond what I could understand. And I got scared, and I canceled the podcast. And he said, do you want to have a phone call? And I said, yeah, sure. So we have this phone call, and we have a beautiful phone call. And I think could have been a podcast. Could have been a podcast. So I decided I will not do that anymore. I won't shy away if I ask someone. First of all, I won't shy away from asking someone. And I won't shy away once I've asked to actually interview them, no matter who they are. Because I don't know anything, and that's okay. Because you don't have to know anything. All you have to do is listen and ask questions. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
Okay. So are you in RCIA?
No.
What is your journey at this point?
I guess I am in RCIA. I didn't know what that stood, but yes, I know what that stands for. There's a parish called the Holy Rosary Parish. Father Peter Tyrone is there.
Okay.
And he agreed to teach me the catechism. I do a lot of traveling. He said I could do it online.
Okay.
So he's teaching it to me privately.
Awesome.
And so then I will go through that, and then in Easter I'll become Catholic. Yeah.
Wow. Brings tears to my eyes. Wow, that's amazing. Another member coming to the church.
Yeah.
Do you see it as homecoming? Does that sound like an appropriate word, or?
Well, it is. It is definitely, when you first had your first baby, all of a sudden you were a parent.
Yeah.
And you were part of this huge parent club.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a bit like that.
Okay.
And there aren't any Catholics. My grandmother, when she moved to North America from Poland, she changed our religion from Catholic Protestant.
Okay.
She was born in 1912. And yeah. So we were Catholic.
Okay. How did your family, your husband, your kids, how did they
react to this?
Yeah.
They're happy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter, I prayed for my daughter for years because she was very sick when she was young. She had chronic illness. She was diagnosed with many, many joint replacements when she was 7 years old.
Wow.
And she had her hip and her ankle replaced when she was 17. She was very sick.
Oh my goodness.
And I prayed for my mother because my mother died. I prayed for her to intervene and save my daughter. And I didn't know any formal prayer. I just prayed to my mom. And my daughter is healthy now. Like, she's healthy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Would you attribute all these things, your health, recovery, your daughter's would you say those are miracles? It sounds
Well,
miraculous to me, but
I know.
what
I
would
mean,
you, what would
I
you
tell you, my husband suffered from a familial depression.
Okay.
His father's depressed, his father's sister, some of his cousins, like it's pretty, and my daughter inherited it too.
Okay.
And this diet we're on, this carnivore diet,
Yeah.
their depression lifted. So their depression
Okay.
lifted. Our arthritis has lifted. I have many diseases. I have lupus. I don't have any symptoms.
Okay.
I have Sjogren's disease, which is an arthritis of the mucous membranes. I don't have any symptoms except for my eyes are dry, so I use eye drops.
Okay.
But I don't have any medication, and it's because I'm on this diet. And so between faith and this diet, because in a way, this diet, I drink water and I eat meat.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's it. No vegetable,
none,
fruits.
no fruit, no
Nothing.
nothing. And
Okay.
so it's a little bit like being austere, because it's so limited.
Mhm.
I don't drink anything but water. I don't drink tea, don't drink coffee. That gives me arthritis. Like I really can't have anything. I also have celiac disease. So I have a very complicated system. In fact, I should have passed away and be chronically young. And I'm not. I'm pretty healthy. So it is like a miracle. When I walk around, I feel as if am here by the grace of God. I really truly believe I'm here by the grace of God. I always thought my daughter's troubles were dietary. In fact, I gave them all, you can get food sensitivity testing.
Yeah.
And I tested Michaela and it turned red, the whole thing. It was like she was allergic to everything. We thought, well, she can't be allergic to everything. Turned out she was. She was allergic to everything.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she can eat meat. And if she eats just meat, then she's healthy. And I do think in terms of the healthcare system is when people have chronic diseases, they should only eat meat. And then if their symptoms go away, they could start adding foods in again and they could find out. But it's good because you take it down to one variable.
Yeah.
Right? Meat and water. And then your symptoms go away. It's like, okay, what's causing it? Is it dairy? Is it gluten? Is it sugar? Is it a fruit? Is it a veg? Like what is it that's getting me? You can investigate that, but you can't investigate it with our diets now. Our diets are very complicated. And we live in this multicultural place with all kinds of foods. And so it's impossible to know what's causing our troubles. And so I think it would be much, much cheaper on the medical system if we did it that way, because I don't take any drugs. I have no pharmaceuticals prescribed to me, even though I have a number of serious problems. And it's because I have such a limited diet.
Did you finish the novena by any chance? I was just curious.
The 9 days.
The 9-day one, yeah.
No, I didn't actually.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I was just curious.
I don't think I did.
Okay.
I don't think I did.
Okay.
I still have it though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I still have it just in case for the next time I'm sick. Yeah. Mostly I'm gone a lot, right?
Yeah.
We're gone on tour. My his next book is coming out in March and we're starting to travel and tour in January, and we'll travel January, February, March, April.
Okay.
So I'm gone a lot.
What did he think of you wanting to join the Catholic Church?
He told me,
or
no, he's not. No, but not so far.
Yeah.
But he told me pretty clearly last week that, because he was sick as well. He was away and sick when I was sick. And he was gone for a couple of years before he came home. And when he came home, I was like a different person.
Wow. Okay.
Because I had spent a lot of time practicing my faith. And he told me the other day, he said, when I first came home and I was going to Al-Anon meetings.
Okay.
I had a friend who asked me if I'd go to an Al-Anon meeting with her. And I loved this girl. I said, I'll go with you anywhere. I didn't have any reason to go to Al-Anon that I knew of. But when I got there, when people started talking, I thought, well, I probably think in a similar manner to some of these people. Maybe I should come back again. So I went there for 6 weeks because they tell you to go 6 times, and started to understand what the program was about. So I went through the 12 steps. And they were very helpful to me.
Wow. Okay.
They were very helpful to me. The 12 steps it's a spiritual program, right? With no affiliation to any religion.
Mhm.
But the steps and the traditions and everything, they're very ethically sound. And they're based on proper ethics. So it was helpful. So when my husband came home, I had done a lot of work in the 12 steps and I was doing a lot of praying. And so last week he told me, I know that you've done a lot of work to bring you where you are today. And you're very good at supporting what I do. And I want to make sure that I support you as well as you support me. So if you are going to go to church, because I told him the other day, I said, I'd come here last night. Was it last night? I went for a walk with Queenie. I think I came here last night. And when we came into the Kintor, there's two chapels here. And we walked through one of the chapels. She asked me if I wanted to pray. And I sat down to pray. And I'd had quite a busy day. Oh, it was Wednesday, because I'd been to the march at Parliament Hill. I'd been to the march. And then I went in the evening. I was invited to Dr. Robert Malone, who was a doctor who stood up against the vaccines. He was speaking. And so I met a lot of people that day.
Okay.
And when I went into the chapel and I sat down to pray, I could go through the day. And because I was in the chapel, I do a lot of prayer, but it was much easier to concentrate and to bring myself to that place of forgiveness and gratitude, and to try to think of all the people I had met and to pray for all of them. And I said to Jordan, I said, no wonder people have prayer spaces in their houses. That I said, we've been to people's houses who have prayer rooms, and they're rooms that are prayer rooms, and they're not multi-use rooms. They're just single-use rooms.
Okay.
And I said, if I had a house that was a large house, I would have one of those. I don't have one of those, but I think that it'd be really helpful for me every night to go into a church and pray. There's a Russian Orthodox church at the end of our street. And he suggested that I see if it's open at night. So I could just go in there. Because in the 12 steps, step 10 is you review your day and you review everything that you've done to make sure that you haven't made any transgressions. And if you have, to, ask for forgiveness and to make amends. And I like that practice. I think it's a good practice. And I think lots of people have trouble sleeping. And I think sometimes it's because they take their troubles from that day and then they take them into the next day. And so they don't have a restful sleep at night. So I think it's really good to review your day, to let go of everything that has happened that day. And then you have a good night's sleep, because we all need good night's sleeps.
Do you mean the examination of conscience? Is that what you do? Or
What's that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, every night.
So my husband and I, actually the kids were in the car too. We were listening to one of the podcasts as we were coming into Toronto. I live in Hamilton.
Oh, in Hamilton.
Yeah. So he hadn't seen, there's like a picture artwork podcast. So his observation, he said, the hand of God is pushing her along. And then I was thinking, for the artwork for a podcast, it's Michelangelo's Creation of Adam. Yeah. With the hands touching. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking, wow, a hand of God. Like, how did he know? But that's what he sensed from our podcast. Is that what you were hoping to convey with the Michelangelo? Yeah, it was the connection. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So pretty much, if you've listened to my podcast, sometimes the theme of the podcast is not spiritual, but often it will come around to spirituality. Yeah, how would you like your podcast to influence people? In what way? Well, I'm hoping that I can bring people on, ask questions and have them speak, maybe inform people of ways of understanding the world that they haven't thought of. But really, I've been most interested in the divine feminine. And I think women, with what's going on with this gender
trouble, I think it's necessary for women to speak up. I think that women have no idea just how much trouble we're in, and that it's up to each of us to do our part, whatever that is, to try to bring understanding, communication forward towards truth and forgiveness, right? You know, I think often if you listen, you'll hear something that can change your mind, and you may not even know that you have a belief. It may have been a belief that you were given to you by your parents, so you might even not know why you believe what you do. But if you listen without trying to think about why the person is wrong or what you want to say next, if you really listen, sometimes you can learn something that can really change who you are and bring you closer to who you might be. And so that's kind of what I hope for. I hope to bring clarity.
What would be your message? I mean, in this age now, it seems like there was a scholar who wrote a book called, I think his name was Francis Fukuyama, The End of History. It seems like there's the end of woman, right? Which they're trying to erase
It looks
what is
that
woman.
way. Yeah, right.
Even what is man. So
Right. But what is woman more direct?
what
Well, I think women have largely, not all women, but feminism had a place. You know, it had a place. There was a time where women, they didn't have the vote, they didn't have equal access to education. They just didn't have equal access. And we do now. We do now. And so, as far as I can tell, whatever feminism was good for has been done. And I'm afraid that feminism has been captured by this ideology and is now used in a destructive manner. And it's very, very complicated what's gone on. You know, women were given the birth control pill. Of course, Catholics don't believe in the birth control pill, right? We've never discussed what the birth control does to women, not openly. I have a podcast about it because I interviewed a woman who wrote a book about it. And she talks about your brain and the birth control pill and how it can change you. But they started giving women hormones for birth control back in the early 60s. And we never talked about the effects of that on women. And now we're giving children hormones. And I think we've been quiet too long. You know, I think that we've been quiet much, much too long, that we have to speak out about these things, because the use of hormones, you know, there's some women that the birth control pill has been helpful to. I'm sure that's true. But I've had many comments from women that it has been a disaster for them. You know, it's caused all kinds of health issues and psychological issues. And I think it's a very, you know, every time we think we have a quick way of solving something, we better think again. You know, I think when God designed us, He designed us in a certain way for a reason. And if we think we could get around that, well, then we're thinking that we have thought it through more than God has thought it through. And that's pretty ego-driven, that kind of thought. And so, but there's a lot of work that women can do, I think, too, especially in terms of biology.
Just to go back, so in terms of, I mean, feminists really dislike Mary because they think, oh, she's submissive and, you know, like she's not a good representation of women. But I mean, you were drawn to the Rosary. And I feel like Mary was kind of overlooked in terms of her strength because, I mean, I was listening to your podcast and Queenie was mentioning, you know, she stood at the foot of the cross and she wasn't lying down. She was standing up.
Yeah.
You know, and to have that much strength. I mean,
Yes, really. Yeah.
What do you think about Mary?
She's an admirable character.
Yeah.
That's what I think of Mary.
I mean, in some ways, it seems like you, with your daughter, when she had the health issues, I don't know, it seems like, you know, Mary suffered because of Jesus and you were in your own way also suffering.
Well, women, you know, you have little kids, your kids are going to leave home. Every mother fails. We have to give up our kids to the world. And that was dramatic. The crucifixion is a dramatization of this giving up, but every mother has to give up a little bit at a time as her kids grow up so that they can become independent. And women must understand that each of us has our own relationship with God, and that it isn't up to us to control our children. It's up to us to protect them, but it's not up to us to control them and to direct them. It's up to their relationship with God to find their direction.
Thank you for joining me today. A special thank you to Tammy Peterson for sharing her powerful story of healing and conversion with a fellow stay-at-home mom to share with the world. Her story went viral for a very good reason. Tammy, and the way that God worked in her life and how she allowed Him to work in her life, has brought the topic of conversion to a global audience on social media. What I call the Tammy Peterson effect came afterwards, where others were sharing their own conversion stories on social media. The day after the story was published in the Catholic Register newspaper, and retold, and in some unfortunate cases plagiarized, Hollywood comedian Rob Schneider announced that he had converted to Catholicism. Faith took center stage at this year's Super Bowl when the Hallow Prayer app was featured, and Catholic celebrities like Mark Wahlberg and Jonathan Roumie of the Chosen TV series invited people to pray during Lent. May Tammy's example invite us to examine our own faith more deeply, to develop a daily practice of prayer, to pray the Rosary, and to meditate upon the life of Jesus and Mother Mary, and how our faith can inspire us in our vocation as wives and mothers, and also in our professional vocations. Please spread the word to another Catholic mom. Join us for the next episode where we continue the story of Tammy Peterson's conversion and journey towards the Catholic faith. God bless. Thank you for listening to the Veil and Armor podcast.
I invite you to share this with another Catholic mom today. Please subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel, and please spread the word. Let's be brave.
Let's be bold.
And be blessed together.